All right, I wanted to start today talking a little bit about the nervous system training equipment. You have a cool analogy about the Supercat. First of all, can you explain what the Supercat is, how it's different from normal squats, how it fits into nervous system training, and then we'll get into the history of it a little bit from there.
Okay. So the Supercat is actually a really interesting sort of concept. And is there any way we can pull up like an image or like a video of like the Supercat while I'm kind of going through it?
Yeah, I'll pull that up.
Yeah, if you just put on YouTube Supercat, you'll come across some stuff. All right, so when it comes to utilizing the Supercat, this is something Mars started to incorporate somewhere in the early 2000s, and I believe he was introduced to the Supercat by a gentleman. I don't know his real name, but he calls himself the Dunk Master. And he was like really big into, plyometric training, stretch shortening, cycle activation. And I don't know how they met, but I guess they worked together sometime in California. And when Marv started working with this Supercat machine, this really was a game changer for his application on training the nervous system. Oh, there's a good machine. So this is how it's usually designed to be used. Right? You have a machine that has an R. So it has like a lever that goes on the athlete, and it runs on a 2-to-1 chain crank. So you got two small gears that are fed to two independent chains, and one large gear that's connected to a chain that goes into the arm. You can kind of see it like across like the profile in front of the athlete. And that follows a swing system that connects to a bottom carriage that holds the weight. Now, the thing about what makes this machine so effective, unlike, say, like bars or other machines that look similar, but maybe the loading plates are on the side of the arms, is that puts a lot of the force vector directly on the athlete. And with this system, as soon as the athlete hits the ground, a huge amount of the force starts to dissipate just because of like the design of the leverage. And it doesn't exactly like all shear through the athlete. The machine sort of absorbs a lot of the kinetic energy, right? You load it up from the back, and there's a bunch of different ways to use this. Now, the company that made this machine was called Powernetics, and I don't know if they made the first design. I believe they do. They're out of Texas, and they actually went out of business during COVID. And so right now, there's one or two other companies that make a machine that's basically the exact same clone. It's a lot more expensive. And they're really difficult to get a hold of because like the shipping cost is just insane. Like I remember I was trying to order one. It was like a $2,400 machine on top of like $600 like shipping. And I was like, oh my God, because it's made of steel and it's a pretty cumbersome machine to move around. You got to kind of understand, like work with it a little bit to transport it around. But the good thing, despite its price, you'll probably balance out around the same sort of price if you were to invest in like a heavy duty squat rack from Rogue, because this this machine can do everything that your barbell can do and more. So is there any way we could find like the Supercat in use by say like Marv Marinovich or okay, go third image over, the third short over what we're looking at. Yeah. So if you look, here's a guy. Actually, this guy's from Canada. I've talked to this guy a few times. He was at a seminar with Nick Curson. And how Marv decided to use this machine is that he realized that this arm, when it's loaded, actually creates a very low impact, shock onto the limbs, which could directly activate the stretch shortening cycle. And so he applied a slant at the bottom of the Supercat, which will force athletes to be more on the forefoot, and it creates a better angle of leverage with the arm. And he started really experimenting with it, inverting the athletes. Like this is one of like probably the most impressive uses of the Supercat, where